Hi, everybody. I'm Kashner, and these days, when I'm introducing myself, I say that I'm a social worker with an MBA. But back in 1986, we're going to go back a ways, I was a teenager, and I was going out to volunteer. And on this particular day, my friend and I went into New York City, and we were volunteering with a group, and we were sent to the Prince George Welfare Hotel. And for those of you who don't remember the days of the Welfare Hotel, or who, weren't in New York, perhaps, it was a very bad idea. In the Prince George alone, there were 14 floors, 500 families, and 1,300 children. And our goal on this day was that we were tasked with the job of walking, our whole group, walking every single floor and finding out which kid in which room wanted what for Christmas. Yes. So I was in a little group of 3, and we took, I want to say, the 7th, 8th, and 9th floors, and we walked around with our clipboards, and we talked to a lot of kids, and we saw things that at 16 years old we were not necessarily ready to see and to experience and to smell. If you can imagine entire families living in a hotel room that was built to house 1 or 2 people for one night. And so there were some interesting things. It was 1986, so most of the boys wanted, can you guess, Transformers. Most of the boys wanted Transformers, and the girls, it was sort of a mix between Care Bears and My Little Pony. But what I remember most from that day is not that the mass of people wanted these common things, but I remember this one little girl. She was probably about 4 years old, and she didn't want a Care Bear, she didn't want My Little Pony. She wanted one of those veterinarian kits. You know, the ones that comes with like a little carry crate and the stuffed dog and the little doggy Band-Aid and the little stethoscope and the little fake medicine to give the dogs, and that's what she wanted. And I have to say that I've always wondered whether she got that veterinarian kit, or whether she got what most girls wanted, a Care Bear or My Little Pony. Now, back in 1986, scaling, figuring out how to get the exact gift to the right kid in the right room in the right hotel was a very, very difficult thing to try and do, right? It had to do with clipboards. So I'm going to go to one really big number. Right now in this country, we have 46 million people living in poverty. If you add on the number of people who live in low-income households in our country, it's 104 million people. That's a really daunting number. But remember, I see things in the one. I think of the one person, and that's how I view the world and how I always have. So I think of that one little girl. I think of, as I said, I'm a social worker. I think of all those families who I've worked with individually, and I think about their specific goals and the specific challenges that they've faced. Today, things have changed. We have different technologies. If we were trying to do that same thing again today, going through those 500 rooms, we probably wouldn't have clipboards, right? We would have iPads, or we might have iPhones. So I think it's time that how we give transforms. And so I founded an organization, a nonprofit group called Benevolent. And we like to say that how we give is transforming. We make it possible to look at those 104 million people, or those 46 million people, and to think about what one person needs right now to help him or her get past a hurdle along the way towards his or her goals. So how do we do it? Benevolent is online. We're at benevolent.net. I hope you all check us out later. We allow people to post their needs and to speak for themselves and to say, this is who I am, this is where I'm going, this is what it's going to take to get me there, and this is what's standing in my way right now. As a social worker, I was sick to death of having to say to people, I'm so sorry. I don't have a fund to help you fix your car. I know that if we can't help you fix your car, you're going to lose your job as a home health aide. and you're going to be back to levels of dependence on public aid, on subsidized childcare, on other, free and reduced lunch for your kids at school that you wouldn't have to be on if you could just get your car fixed and keep your job. I got sick of having to say, I'm so sorry, we don't have a solution for that. And so we built it. So this is how we do it. We step in, and we invite every single one of you to step in to help people overcome roadblocks. This is Christina, and Christina's fascinating. She had trained to be a nurse. She went to community college, and while she was in school, her husband lost his job, and they had a really tough decision to face as a family. Should she continue in this pursuit of a nursing degree, or should she go back to her minimum wage job that she was trying to eclipse? Well, they decided that she should persevere and go forward, but by the time she graduated, they were tapped out. And then something bad happened. Not horrendous, nobody got sick or hit by a car, but she went to apply for jobs, and the employer said to her, that's great, you've got exactly the right degree, but don't you have these 2 additional certifications? We can't employ you without them. And Christina was stuck, and she was going to have to give up and fall backwards away from her goals. And so Annie, who works at the charter school where Christina's children go to school, she stepped in and she said, hold on, Christina, before you give up, let's try this benevolent thing. And together they sent us in Christina's story. Christina wrote about her situation. She made a narrative and a video. Annie talked about Christina, and she did a narrative, and she did a video. And 6 people came together, and each one contributed. They might have given $5, $20, $50, and they met Christina's need. And here's a picture of Christina with her certifications. You can see behind her, it's a scrub room in a healthcare facility. And today, Christina has a job in a behavioral health center. And she didn't have to give up on her dream, and she didn't have to fall backwards away from her goals because 6 people stepped in and helped. And this is a note from Christina. Dear benevolent supporters, I want to express my appreciation for your generosity in supporting me with the certifications. More than the monetary value, I so greatly appreciate the thought behind the gift. Having a need is a burden, but your action has really lightened the load. Please accept my heartfelt thanks. So again, 46 million people living in poverty in the United States. That's a daunting number. And often as people who have the capacity to give, whether we can give $5 or $100, we feel overwhelmed by that number, and we think, well, how can I step in? How can I end poverty? How can I end homelessness? What I want to make it possible is for every single one of you to help one person at one time get over one important need. This is a quote from one of our donors. On the benevolent site, there's proof that you know your money's going somewhere, and it really puts a face on it. Donating to someone buying a winter coat to get to school, that was another person's need on the site, which I can totally relate to. That's why I did it. We believe that people want to connect, that they want to know who they're helping and how they're helping. We know that there are people who need exactly that kind of help, and we believe in the one. This is Al. Al was ready to exit homelessness, and the thing that stood in his way was a uniform so that he could accept a job as a waiter. Literally, a uniform. And the wonderful nonprofit that had helped him along his path didn't have a fund for that. And so they together came to Benevolent, and 14 people came together and helped Al. And he wrote, once he had gotten the uniform, gotten the job, gotten his own apartment, he wrote, I have a great job and a place to live where I pay my own rent. Al is the one. Christina is the one. But every single one of you is the one who can help one person right now eclipse poverty. Thank you so much.